All right. Aloha, folks, and welcome to the Empowered Hour. Today, I am so excited. It's like Christmas. I have legends in the room. So, today we are going to be talking about the difference between martial arts and self defense. I've had so many people come to me asking these questions, and I thought, what is the best way to answer it? And then I was thinking, well, there's these amazing humans who most of them I trained under, and they have leagues more experience than I do. I would love to just bring them on, ask them questions, pick their brains, and record it. So then we could just send it out to the masses. So anytime anybody has that question, I'd be like, I have a link for you. There we go. So yes, so we're just going to open up and go around and just share everyone's background and, of course, an introduction. So we can start out. Well, Antonella, you're right next to me. So Antonella, would you mind going?
Of course. So I guess I would introduce myself and answer that question as it always felt right. I knew at a very young age when I was 6. I was living in Germany. That's where I was born. I saw this Asian movie on Kung Fu. I did not know what it was at the time. And I just remember sitting there going, whatever they're doing, I want to do that. Didn't know what it was. Then we immigrated to Australia when I was 8. And the most exciting thing that I was looking forward to were not the kangaroos or the beaches, but Chinatown. And I had to wait till I was 18 years old because, at 18, you're an adult and you can do whatever you want. So as soon as I turned 18, I joined a martial arts club. And it was my best friend at the time that introduced me. And I still didn't know what I was getting myself into. As it so happens, it was the only martial arts that I have ever done, which is the Wing Chun Kung Fu. And I have been studying and teaching since 1996. So it never was, I guess, a conscious decision. It just always felt like, yep, that's what I want to do. And looking back now, I know why I had to do it. If you want to get all woo-woo and spiritual, it was like the planets had to align to get me to this space now. And now I'm sharing exactly the difference with everybody else between martial arts and why now I'm teaching empowerment self-defense, but that's a bit later. So that's my little background of why I'm got into it and why I'm still studying it, because it just feels right.
Awesome. Well, Antonella, also, if you could just share your full name and your title, that would be super awesome as
Of
well. I have your
course.
bio, but it's always just good for the people to hear from you.
Yeah, of course. So my full name is Antonella Spartler. In the Wing Chun world, I'm a certified Wing Chun instructor, the only one in Australia, and I got my certification from the Grandmaster Ip Chun in Hong Kong, who most people would know. His father is Ip Man, who taught Bruce Lee, so that's where most people get that understanding. And currently, I'm also the regional program manager for Asia and the Pacific for Empowerment Self-Defense Global. So those are my titles that I like to share at this moment, as also as a mentor, training as a master instructor, and anything else that I've missed, let me know.
Switch over to Judith. Judith, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, so I'm Judith Siddickman, and I'm in Jerusalem, Israel. I've been here for the majority of my life, probably about 37 years now, 36 years now. As a kid, my mom forced me to go for ballet lessons. I lasted probably a lesson and a half, maybe not even. And in the door next to the ballet class was a karate school. And as she was dragging me out because the teacher had thrown me out, I was like, but I want to do that. I want to do that. And that was just not happening. And in the US, we used to get these scholastic book, things that you got to order books. And one year, I must have been about 8 or 9. one of the books was Judo for Boys. And I bought the book Judo for Boys. And I had a little brother. I mean, and so we would get on my parents' bed and we'd look at the pictures and we would do what we would see in the pictures, and I'd throw him down and then he'd get back up and I'd throw him down again until he decided that he didn't like this game. And that was the end of my martial arts career. I restarted. I was invited as I then became ultra orthodox and had a zillion children. And when I was a 28-year-old mother of 4, my neighbor decided that she wanted to do judo again. She had done it as a kid and she wanted to go back to it. And she needed 6 women to open the class. And I was number 6. And I was a 28-year-old mother of 4. And my body fell in love with it. For the first time since high school, my body felt smart. It felt capable. It felt strong. And not that my instructor was very complimentary. He didn't know how to praise anything. Every time I would go, is that better, Sensei? He was like, keep going. And it just wasn't, that wasn't, praise was not his forte. But I loved it. And today I'm a 4th degree black belt in judo, and it's my heart. Judo is my heart, and judo is everything I do. And I remember when I was training for my first black belt, I was in New York. My family and I had to relocate for a year and a half to help my parents with my grandparents. And the instructor there, this lovely woman sensei, Connie Halporn, looked at me so stressed about not getting things right, because whose voice was in my head? My sensei's. That she looked at me and she said, hey, Yudi, we don't fight judo. We play judo. So if you're not having fun, then you're not doing judo. It blew my mind. And it allowed me to create my judo, which is very different than my sensei's judo.
That's awesome.
That's my beginning story.
Thank you for sharing. Miss Liz.
Oh gosh. So I'm Liz Fitzgerald. Get what I do out of the way quickly. I'm a dojo owner in Nashville. I also run a cert Empowerment Self-Defense and a cert Professionals. So one being for civilians and spreading the good gospel, I guess, of empowerment self-defense, and the other one is dedicated to police and special team reforms, so that we can introduce the principles of compassion, empathy, and empowerment self-defense to the people that are out there, in positions of authority that don't necessarily always behave with that authority the way that they should. So that's what I do. How did I come to martial arts? So as a kid, very much like Udit, my mom really, really wanted like the ballet, the piano player, this, that. I wanted to like play electric guitar and go to karate class and kick everybody's butt. That was not to be when I was a child. However, my grandfather, my godfather were lifelong martial artists, and I really, really looked up to them, and I really wanted to do what they did. And they used to train judo. But growing up, between my mom not being supportive of that when I was very little, and then just as I grew up, life getting in the way, I actually didn't come to martial arts till relatively late in life. I didn't really start until my early 30s. And that was because at that point, I met my current husband, who is phenomenal and happens to teach martial arts. And so that on its own kind of removed a bunch of the, I don't have time for this, because it was a good way for us to spend time together. Not to mention that I absolutely love it. So I started with Aikido. I added Taekwondo. I added JKD. And then I added Filipino Kali. And today I am 3rd degree in Aikido, 5th degree in Taekwondo, and a JKD and Kali instructor. And yeah, that was it.
Say that 10 times fast. Phenomenal. All right, Gentiana.
Yes. Okay, so it's nice to hear the stories of everyone. So my name is Gentiana, and I am from Albania. I am a lawyer with about 20 years of experience on human rights and gender equality. Right now, I'm also an owner of an Aikido dojo in Albania, as well as regional manager of ESD Global in Europe. So my childhood, I was born in a country that at that time had one of the worst dictatorships in the world. So to be honest, I think at that time I never heard of martial arts, or I didn't know about anything about that. So when I was little, I was actually raised like with a lot of care, with a lot of love for my family. And I was a typical, nice, quiet, pleasant girl that would be very gentle with everyone, smiling with everyone, and very shy. I don't know if I said it, but very shy. So actually, it was my parents that when I was about 10, they decided to take me to sports class to learn to train for volleyball. That was at that time, in order to help me be a little bit more forthcoming and so on. And I nevertheless I wanted to sing, I wanted to dance. That was my I had this artistic part of me very, very strong, and I wanted to cultivate that. But I was not allowed. And I was not allowed because of the situation, how Albania was at that time. It was a very unsafe country, and it was like that for many years. It was in transition. So during that time, I finished the university, and I was just focused on my work and just following things that were coming, but martial arts was completely out of my radar at that time. So it was very, very late, like when I was 35, if I'm not wrong, when I joined an Aikido class because of my children. They were practicing Aikido in Ecuador, and that's how I had a one-time class, and then I just loved it. So I never quit. I just was practicing 5 times a week. And moreover, when I got to know that there was no Aikido school in Albania and I was about to come back to Albania, then I had to train all the hours possible, and realized how much I liked it, how much I connected with myself through that, all the benefits that you know from the martial arts. And once in Albania, I was actually doubting a lot whether to start a school or no, because I didn't want to stop practicing Aikido, but it was like out of mind for a woman to teach martial art, which was Aikido, which many people criticize it because it is not aggressive enough, like our culture in Albania. And moreover, to have I was not even Shodan at that time. I didn't have even my black belt, but I started, and little by little, this started to be bigger and bigger. And today we have a good community in the dojo. But what I felt was that it was not enough, because in martial arts, you need a lot of years of practice and discipline, and not many people have that. So it was an urge that I felt to reach more people, knowing how important this was also for empowerment. And that is how I looked and found Empowerment Self-Defense. And I also connected and never quit that one either. So I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you, Tasha.
Thank you. Thank you for all of you coming. I'm just so grateful. So some of you have already answered this, the why you studied and taught martial arts. If anyone wants to add on to that, please feel free.
Sure, I will.
Okay.
Now I'm going to add to, again, Tiana, when I moved out of Jerusalem with my family, and where I was, there were no martial arts class for women or girls. And I was a blue belt in judo. And so I would go train in Jerusalem on Mondays and teach whatever I learned on Mondays, Tuesday night for the girls in my community. But I started teaching long before I was a real teacher. And they didn't want me to start teaching martial arts when I approached the community center, because they said, well, we have martial arts. And I said, well, what do you have? We have karate. Okay, you have karate for boys taught by a men, right? Yes. I was like, what? That's like, we have basketball, we don't need soccer. That's just silly. And this is a religious community, so have karate for the boys and I'll teach judo for the girls. We solved the problem. And after 2 years, the parents of the girls' classes were begging me to teach the boys too. Because why do I keep teaching martial arts? I mean, at the moment, I'm kind of semi-retired, though I'm thinking about reopening my class in September, just thinking about it. I teach because I think there's something really special in a sensei-student relationship where I don't have to like these people. I don't have to love these kids. I'm not their parent. I'm not their relative, right? So if I do, that's super special. Like if I can show them love and care and that I believe in them, they know that it's got to be honest and that we're building a relationship for life. It's not just about, I'm teaching you some skills and you'll either use them or you won't. Martial arts is a life path. And for people who really get it and need it and want it, it's like air. It's like the air you breathe. And yes, I got all teary. Go. Somebody else go.
That was beautiful and so true. I'm not crying, you're crying.
Does anyone else have anything to add on, or shall we move on? Okay, so for me, I know that when I went into martial arts, I really was looking for self-defense. I didn't realize at the time, and I wasn't connecting the dots, but I really wanted self-defense training. And it took me a really long time to find ESD, but I know that for me, with the combination of all the different styles that I studied, I was trying to create it at the time. So mind was completely blown when I found ESD. So excited. So I just wanted to see why all of you teach self-defense. We'll open it up. Who would like to start? We'll do popcorn style.
I need to plug my 1 second.
Yeah, I can start. I didn't know there was such a thing as ESD. When I turned 18, I finished what we call high school here in Australia. And at the same time, I also began my university studies in psychology. And I have always been, I guess, one to naturally empower the people around me. Just sort of came natural. It's like, if somebody said, I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can. I believe in you. And that's part of my nature. And so I always did ESD when I was teaching, just not knowing that it was called Empowerment Self-Defense. And I guess that's why you know, how my style of teaching was quite unique from a lot of sifus, that they're quite hard down the line, which I love. Like I never regret teaching hardcore, like it's not for everybody, but horses for courses. It really suited my style of love, being focused and disciplined. And it got me through, a lot of things, university exams, labor with my two girls. And when things got rough, I just implemented everything I learned from my martial arts. But it wasn't until about now 3 years ago where I started getting into social media and started realizing that, oh, look, there's other women that are doing, I guess, this style of self-defense with the empowerment and maybe a bit of martial arts, but also personal development. And I started following this group and this person. And again, for me, I base a lot of my decisions on feelings. If it feels right, my intuition, that it wasn't until I was invited to come to the camp in 2018 in New York with ESD Global. It was on day 3 where I was like, I know what the difference is between teaching somebody martial arts, which I think you did, was saying is a lifelong process. It's a journey. It's a form of commitment, nearly a religion, as opposed to teaching empowerment self-defense, which I realized this is for everybody. I don't have to turn blue in the face to tell somebody, hey, come to my Wing Chun classes. They'll be great for you. First you learn this form, then you learn this form, and then you're able to learn this technique, and it will boost your confidence. Like, I realized you don't have to be a martial artist to learn how to be able to defend yourself. And I forgot the question now because I just love talking about this. So did I answer your question, Tasha?
You did. It was why teach self-defense, and I think that answers it. So who would like to go next? All right, Liz.
So I started teaching self-defense because my oldest son, when he was in middle school, like the first year he was in middle school, so he would have been like 10 or 11 years old, he came home in tears crying because he'd gotten beaten up. And some like upperclassmen stole his wallet and they pretty much beat him up. And much to my dismay, the school security didn't do a whole lot of anything. That's a story for another day. But so we started looking for, even though at that point my husband and I were, well, my husband of course was already teaching martial arts, I was taking martial arts. Kids refused to learn from their parents at that age. So we figured, okay, well, we're going to have to find him someone other than us. Very much like Udit was saying, if you're not the parent and you don't have to care, when you do, it means something. So they take things a little bit more seriously. And so we started looking around for a self-defense class for him, for starters, because he had to go back to school the next day. And we couldn't find anything that wasn't either women only, but like not an empowerment self-defense format, more of a, put your keys behind, between your fingers and don't wear a ponytail and whatever, or fear-based, or some sort of like marketing ploy to get you to take the one class so that we can now sign you up for our martial arts class. And so we realized that there was nothing out there, certainly not in our area, that was available for people that really just needed to know how to defend themselves right away and how to get that confidence back. So we created our own program, which we called Empowerment Self-Defense by accident. And we, for the longest time, thought that there was like no one else teaching this kind of stuff, mostly because we couldn't find anyone that did. And we realized that women were being taught to be afraid and move from a place of fear rather than from a place of confidence, and that boys and men were as well, which was just feeding into the whole negative cycle. So that's why we started teaching. Many years later, I get this very strange call from some people in Israel that I will not, that shall remain unnamed. And all of a sudden it became very clear that we weren't the only ones. And it was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole community. This is amazing, right? So, and that was almost like teaching, another piece of teaching self-defense for us, that we weren't alone, that we weren't isolated. And so these are the two reasons really that I know I teach self-defense, empowerment self-defense specifically, is that you have to know that you're worth it. And you have to know it, not just academically think it. And that you need to realize that you're not isolated. And I think that's what the classes that everyone on this panel right now teaches really does for people.
I would just add that not everybody wants to dedicate their lives to the martial arts. That's a full in, you know. You can't just do martial arts for a couple of months and go, yeah, I did it. No. That's like wanting to be a pianist and only doing it for a couple of months. It's not going to work. And I think what we realized was it is absolutely possible to teach women who do not want to become martial artists how to defend themselves from a single unarmed known assailant in a few hours. Like that, they're most of what stops women from believing that they can defend themselves is that they've been told they can't. Not because they've ever tried and not because they've ever confronted being physical. It's just they have been brainwashed into believing they don't, that they don't really have the capability of protecting themselves. And working in a community where there are a lot of moms, and these moms don't invest money in themselves. Like they don't have the time, the energy, or the ability to put money into themselves. And yet they have the right to learn how to defend themselves. And so how do we make it accessible? And I think one of the aha moments was Sensei Susan Williams said to me, "Oh, Yudi, we teach how to break boards on class 1." I'm like, "What?" She said, "Oh yeah, because they come into the class with, well, I can't do this. I'm not strong. I'm not capable. I'm not this. If I teach them how to break a board right away, like that's gone. Like that evaporates in 10 minutes. So I want to get that over with right away. We're going to evaporate that myth that you are not strong. Okay, now you know you're strong. Let me show you how to do it in a way that would be useful. Let me teach you a little bit more, but I don't have to trip over the, oh my God, I can't do this. Oh my God, this is not for me. I'm not that type of person. I wouldn't do this. Not that type of person. That's where the pool noodles came from. So the whole concept behind hitting each other with pool noodles, which are colorful and fun and don't really hurt. I mean, they can, but they don't really hurt, was from some teenager giving me attitude going, I wouldn't do that. When I talked about, I was like, well, what's the option? He's going to rape you? What do you mean you wouldn't hit him? Oh, I wouldn't hurt somebody. Then you pull out the pool noodles and all of a sudden, all these girls who wouldn't hurt anybody are whacking on each other like crazy and you don't care. And they just hit each other and they're running around and they're giggling and they're whacking each other and getting each other back. And, oh yeah, you wouldn't do it. Well, the question is, well, where's your priority? Would you do it to protect yourself? You know what? Maybe you would. Maybe you would surprise yourself. And look, you just did it for fun. would you do it to protect yourself? And I think that's a huge piece, because martial arts is about self-defense. There's no kidding here. You know, we all learn skills for protecting yourselves. No matter where your martial art came from, it's a system for dealing with unarmed combat. And it just takes a long time to get there. And it takes a long time to get there because there is a perfect way of doing it. Getting home safe is perfect in self-defense. Whatever messy thing you did to get there doesn't matter to me. Getting home safe is perfect. Everything else is interpretation.
Sasha, I wanted to add something as well.
Yep.
Because as I mentioned before, I worked many years with victims of trafficking, of human trafficking. And our work as civil society organizations was to do awareness raising, to do identification, referral, make sure that they have legal assistance, psychological assistance, social assistance, shelter, and so on. So after a while, when practicing Aikido, I realized how important this is, exactly what Judith was mentioning in terms of self-esteem, self-defense, everything. So actually my first group to work with the program we called it was safety and well-being. And it was more to prevent, but also to heal from abuse and violence that these girls and women had received for years. So we started with that, and it was like an experiment. We tried, and then because the girls and the women were in a shelter because they had been trafficked before and exploited in different ways. So it was no time to do any martial art. The shelter, normally they stay for a short period of time, which is like up to 3 months in the best case scenario. And so there was a need for something short in time and practical enough to help them prevent other situations of abuse, other situations of violence, no matter who that person was. Because with victims of trafficking, the same way, like we know in general, when it comes to persons that have been abused or violated, it is the persons that they know, the ones that are the perpetrators, right? Is the behind the doors that the violence is happening. So that was one more, it was needed to give something like very practical and very in a very short time. So that's the reason, and it's very interesting to see how from different angles we have arrived to the same program, to the same point, which is the empowerment through self-defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I fell in love with ESD the moment I picked up my first noodle. It's like, oh, she doesn't know I'm a martial artist. I'm so excited.
Yeah, a mistake I will never make again.
But yeah,
Asking someone with a martial arts background to hit me with the noodle.
It's very understated. I was wearing a dress. It was undercover.
Yeah, right. You totally. Yep, that you were camouflaged 100%.
But yeah, no, I mean, so much of what all of you are saying resonates with me. I started originally teaching women's self-defense classes outside of my dojo because of a woman going in, well, lots of different reasons, but a woman came into my dojo and she definitely was very gun shy of a lot of different behaviors. She didn't really want to touch any men, and she actually got kicked out of the class because she wouldn't shake the instructor's hand. And so I just watched that and watched her behavior and just how she seized up. And I thought, this is really awful. There needs to be a place for women to be able to go where they can feel safe and learn. And just getting into the difference between the two, martial arts and self-defense. And while, you know, there is that piece about it's a lifetime practice for martial arts, I've also gone to different self-defense classes taught by martial artists. And there, you know, there have been what Liz was saying with, oh, you need to pull your hair back. You shouldn't wear a ponytail. You should have your hair in a bun. You shouldn't wear long earrings. You know, I was wearing high heels one time when I went to a class because I wanted to see how they would respond, and they made me take off my shoes. And I was like, okay, well, you know, this isn't going to be as realistic for me. So I just wanted to hear from all of you, just because I do think that it is important. You have so many, you know, so many people who are training under you, who are asking and answering this question to martial artists who are coming up to them saying, you know, what's the difference between martial arts and self-defense? What is the difference between what you do and what I do? And that's another reason why I wanted to have all of you on, just because you are so outspoken. All of you state very eloquently the difference. You know, for so many times I would whip out that very long, I don't know, it's like 3 or 4 sheets of paper that Liz made, and I would read it. I'm like, hold on, I have a full answer for you. It's right here. So yeah, so I just wanted to have people hear from you. What is the difference between martial arts and self-defense?
I'll start again. Well, let me put it this way. For over 2 decades, I've been trying to get my sisters, my mum, my 2 daughters, my best friends, my loved ones to come to my classes. No go. They weren't interested. But when I started teaching empowerment self-defense, my mum came, my sisters came, my daughters came, my friends came, my colleagues came, and they all loved it. School mums came, and they just were like, wow, when's the next class? Or I can teach this to my friend. And, you know, what I notice is with my martial arts Kung Fu brothers, you know, if they have children, I ask them, well, has your daughter ever come to one of your Kung Fu classes? Oh, no, they hate it. It's like, well, this is a difference, that they can still get another sense of empowerment through ESD that they will not get if they go to mum and dad's class. And that I find very empowering. And of course, then my daughters tell their friends, and their friends come along, and so forth it goes. So it's I just noticed that, you know, I think you did mention this actually in London a couple of years ago when we did Impact Personal Safety, that martial arts is like you're training to become a neurosurgeon. You know, it's like dedication. It's like you're in it 100%. But you don't, to be able to defend yourself, and whatever defend means, whether it's physically or, you know, from emotional abuse, physical, spiritual, financial, psychological abuse, this is where the ESD comes in. And most people relate to that. They relate to the, oh, you mean I can say no to my friend? Or, you know, they don't teach you that in martial arts. And you know, martial arts is the Rolls Royce, the Bentleys of self-defense, in terms of, yeah, you're investing money, time, energy, you're sacrificing a lot of other things to get the art form, the PhD in self-defense. But there's really no comparison. You know, I find it's like, if you're into martial arts, great. If you want to dedicate your time in martial arts, great. Find your sifu, your sensei. But empowerment self-defense needs to be available for everybody, anytime, everywhere. And it should, like we say in ESD Global, be available just like CPR and swimming lessons. And we've got to normalize it. And we need to start talking about it, because most people, they don't understand the nuances of empowerment self-defense issues that we discuss, that we do not discuss in a martial arts class. And I know that a lot of my martial arts colleagues, they get very territorial, like, well, no, this, this is what we do in martial arts. It's like, no, you gotta be in it, understand it, and listen. You need to listen to your student. That's what I'll say to that.
I would love to add that there's some basic differences in the training too. So when you're training martial arts, you're really training the art, even though the martial arts were created specifically for hand-to-hand combat, way back whenever it was that, each of the different arts came about, the training was different then. It was trained to be utilized in that way. Well, over the years, the reduction in the need for the martial aspect turned the training from practical to art-based. So is it true that a martial artist can 100% defend themselves under any situation? Actually, it isn't, because the training isn't there. Testing stresses you. Maybe if you're into competition, it stresses you, but it's not a life or death type of training anymore. So you may have all of the academic skill, like Antonella was saying, it's true, like martial arts or like the PhD. But if you're not, training to apply it in different ways, whether it's, to learn respect even, or to learn self-respect. If the instructor that you have and the methodology that instructor uses doesn't focus on those things, then you'll never learn how to apply it. I mean, you'll have to extract the lessons on your own, which a lot of people don't want to do when they go to a martial arts class. Martial arts class really is a social release. It's an excellent way when you've had a really crap day to loosen that up. Who doesn't love to hit some stuff when they've had a really crappy day, right?
Oh, let's practice some strangles. Woohoo!
Yeah, am I right? So the training methodology is very different. It's not martial arts aren't taught in a practical format anymore. Even the martial arts that are like Krav Maga, JKD, so on and so forth. Still at this point, if you go to your neighborhood martial arts school, are probably going to be taught more in an art way than, say, for example, Krav Maga is taught to Israeli military, which is, you're going to be facing some stuff. Let me train you to be able to address that. Does that make sense? So for us, it's a difference between self-perfection, which would be the arts. How is my stroke going to express the exact feeling and emotion that I'm trying to get across, versus self-preservation, which is crap. The poop has hit the fan. And I have got, and I think I got some on me. Let's take care of this right now, So, again, it's a difference between practicality and that more of a social self-perfection, self-improvement aspect. It's not to say that martial arts can't be trained to be effective self-defense from the get-go. They used to be trained that way. It's just that they're really not trained that way anymore. And so for most people, making that leap between the art and being able to use it when your frog brain kicks in and everything has gone to crap no longer exists. So
and many of them today are sports, and they're training for sport.
Exactly.
One of my favorite stories was I used to go to San Francisco every now and then to a small little dojo where Fukuda Sensei was teaching. She was this little Japanese lady who had been teaching in San Francisco forever. She passed away a couple weeks before her 100th birthday and had taught a couple days before that. She was crazy, amazing. And so I would go out every couple of years and train with them. And so a couple of years after she had passed and I was out in the area, I went in and I said, I'm here you know, if you'd like me to teach, I wouldn't mind doing a women's self-defense class for the women in the dojo. It's an all women's dojo. So so here are martial arts women who are high ranking. The majority of them were all high ranking, very few beginners. And we're doing a self-defense class. And so, and they do a kata from the turn of the last century, where it's the women's self-defense kata, and you have a little purse, and somebody tries to steal your purse, and what do you do if right? So they train in self-defense. And somebody asked the question about pepper spray, and I said, well, where would you keep it? She said, probably in my handbag. I said, okay, do you have a handbag with you? She said, yeah. I said, bring your handbag. Okay, great. She's now holding her handbag. I said, do you have a pen in your handbag? She said, yes. And then I went, get it out, get it out, get it out, take it out, take it out now, take it out. And she was like, ah! I was like, yeah, see, that's why you need a self-defense class. Because the second you're in that, holy shit, what's going on? No. So how do we make it real? How do we get people to understand that it's not just a scary person, the boogie monster who jumps out of the bushes? It could be somebody you're really close with who's being really inappropriate. And you might not want to throw him on the floor and choke him like I would love to do in judo. You know, you want to deal with it in a different way. And how do you practice what you need to navigate the world from a safe, strong, empowered place? And those are the tools we give.
Yeah, and besides the verbal skills that we don't really practice in a normal martial arts session, what I would say it's really an important difference is that the dojo gets so much bigger, meaning you don't need a traditional dojo to practice empowerment self-defense. You know, we can go now to the schools, we can do it outside by the beach or in the mountain. So this gives so much freedom, and one can reach so many people that it's amazing. So it is a very important process where you are teaching some skills and not only focusing on the techniques like we normally do in martial arts, right? So one part of the learning is the technical part, and here what is more important is the skill itself, combined verbal with the physical, which is a good balance in order to be ready for whatever uncomfortable situation that can show up.
Yeah. So just certain things that just listening to everybody and kind of taking it in, you know, there's how Liz had said martial arts is more of perfection training. I just know that as a martial artist, when I was training, certain things that have happened in my real life, martial arts never trained me for that. And so, you know, listening to Judith, where she's, you know, yelling at this person who's trying to get something out of her purse or something like that. That's what I see ESD being preparing people for. There's no rules when it comes to out there in the real world. Martial arts has rules. So I know that when I was in a tournament or something like that, there was the adrenaline, but it wasn't the same as me having to defend myself against some schmuck who I've known for years and, you know, suddenly have to deal with an adverse situation. You know, and so I really appreciate all of you for just sharing all of those different perspectives. I did want to just go one step further with the next question that I had, because there are so many of us who I've just had conversations with individual ESD instructors, and they said, you know, they've had different martial artists who have DM'd them on the low, who have had lots of different messages that they've wanted to share. You know, lots of brown belts who are wanting to let people know that they're brown belts in this style and that they could probably kick somebody's butt. You know, so what is one piece of advice that you could share to a martial artist who's watching right now, who's like, I teach self-defense, or I want to teach self-defense? What is something that you could say to them that one, you know, can share a little bit more about the differentiation, but then two, also if they really do want to teach self-defense, what are certain skills that they need to be adding into their practice? Liz, do you want to start off?
Sure. I think probably the number one, I mean, if you wanted me to give like the advice, I could be here till next week.
Oh yeah, no.
I'm just gonna give you one piece. Like, I'm just gonna give you the important one for me anyway. I would say, you know, there's the whole thing about emptying your cup. There's a huge mistake that a lot of people make, is that they throw the cup away with everything they've emptied from it. It's important to have a beginner's mind, but particularly if you intend on teaching, don't completely exclude whatever experience you have, whether it's because you're a martial artist or because you're an attorney that's dealt with, you know, human trafficking, or because you're, you know, an expert mediator, or whatever it is. All those experiences are important in not just being able to teach, but also in filling the gaps for the people that you're going to be teaching. So empty your cup, come in with a beginner's mind. Don't think that because you have all these degrees in martial arts, you're going to automatically know exactly what you need to do to teach a self-defense class, because it's not true. But don't throw your experience away with it. Don't come in like a newborn baby that has literally just opened its eyes either. Could there be a benefit to that? Sure. But your experience is important. I mean, it's actually the first thing that we tell our students in an empowerment self-defense class. We even, whether we're teaching them the concepts or we're teaching them the physical, you know, the physical techniques. For example, every time I tell a class that I'm going to teach them how to knee somebody effectively, they all like look at me like, you know, they've either seen like an MMA fight or whatever, and they're like, oh my God, I can't do that. It's like, okay, here's how we're going to learn. When was the last time you went skipping along in the park? And they're like, oh, I don't know, when I was 5. Okay, well, now we're going to spend the next 5 minutes skipping. And at the end of it, when everyone's gassed out, it's like, you know what you just did? You just did a series of knees. So don't throw away that experience. You know, in fact, utilize it to improve your teaching and to help your students make those connections so that they know that they already, you know, it's like the Dumbo, you never needed the feather. It was always there. It was always in you. You know, you always had it in you. You just needed to have someone refresh your memory.
Helps if I unmute and I talk. So no, thank you for that explanation. Does anybody else want to add to that?
Be willing to listen more than you talk. And I think that's actually an important skill for any empowerment self-defense instructor, that we come with a lot of knowledge and we can talk and talk and talk and tell and teach and share stories and do all this wonderful stuff. But if we're not listening to our students, we're not going to pick up the nuances of what they really need. So one of the skills that a martial artist would be best leaving at the door is that teaching voice that they have and they've developed, and just listen, observe, absorb, and then see how it fits for you. I think teaching empowerment self-defense to me is very personal. Everybody does it differently. Everybody, because you have to bring your authentic self to the work. I can't teach like Antonella or like Liz or like Antiana or like you, because I can only teach like me. And while some people can say things like I say them or do the same games I do, they're never going to do them like me. They're going to do them like them. And that's really important, because your students want to be able to learn what they need to do to make them feel safer walking through the world. And it has to feel personal. And that's not always easy in the martial arts to figure out, because everybody wants to be like sensei. And a good sensei will help their students understand, no, you have to do judo like you, or you have to do your taekwondo like you. But not every sensei knows what that is. If you're not doing it exactly the way I showed you and how I showed you, it's not right. And so, yeah, we can have a discussion about good senseis, bad senseis, but the reality is there's something very personal that's brought to empowerment self-defense, because we want them to feel that their ability to protect themselves is personal.
Yes. Yeah.
I would like to close. I would like to say also the obvious, but it's important to say it anyway. If there is a sensei or as you asked, a martial artist willing to learn and willing to teach self-defense, or to have it as an additional to their own classes, I would strongly advise to reach out, Empowerment Through Self-Defense Global, because now we are present in all the continents, and we can share information, and we can answer to any questions, and look for any possibility to give our best, so that there are more and more people practicing and learning how to teach, and empowering more people.
Antonella, did you want to say anything before I move on?
Well, just to tie up what everybody was saying and sharing, absolutely, to reach out to Empowerment Self-Defense Global, that we can connect you to instructors or start you on your journey to become an Empowerment Self-Defense instructor. But specifically, if you are martial artists and you are looking at teaching empowerment self-defense, I would ask, for what reason, what is your intention? Because it's not about having accolades to add, that sticker on your shoulders. It's not about that. Like you did said, it is about listening to your student in your empowerment self-defense class, knowing what they need, and then working backwards. It's not imparting your knowledge on them as a martial artist, but actually understanding who you are teaching, and then let them teach you, so then you can give them the appropriate information, because not every empowerment self-defense class is the same. Like if you were teaching your martial arts, Monday night's class, Tuesday night's class, and so forth, you would follow a curriculum. But empowerment self-defense, it is about listening to your student and understanding what they need in that moment. So yeah, I agree with what everybody is saying. It is a very unique experience that you cannot read obviously from a book, just like you can't learn martial arts from a book. But I really encourage anybody that is interested and serious about teaching ESD to actually go in and experience ESD themselves.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And something that I've also just tying in is that all of you study multiple styles, different styles of martial arts, and there's no one specific right one. There's all of these different ways to get to the same end result. As Judith was saying, perfect is making it home safely. So just understanding that, I am not the one, the only, the right way, everyone else is wrong. type of thing. I did want to lead into the next question, which I think is so important because we do have people who are from different cultural backgrounds, different genders, different races, different gender orientations and lifestyles. And I think that it is really important to address that there's, again, no one right way to teach, but, why is it so important to address self-defense differently for different backgrounds and cater to different lifestyles, races, and gender orientations? Who would like to start off?
I'll give you an understanding that we've learned. So the first pilot program that was done from Israel, we sent a team to the Dominican Republic to teach women and hopefully to find people that they could train to become empowerment self-defense instructors. And in interviewing the women, the people of the community about violence in the community so that they could get a better understanding on how to make the program culturally appropriate, they heard that it was considered acceptable in that culture for women to publicly embarrass their husbands and even hit them in front of their friends if they would catch them in a bar spending money having a drink because they were not capable of affording a motorcycle for the family. So that was such a shame in their community that the culture was to be abusive to husbands who could not live up to that standard. You're not as good a man. So here we are now going to teach a women's self-defense class. How could we not address that? Like, it was an aha moment of, sometimes things in different cultures go in ways that we wouldn't know from the outside. And how do we allow those conversations to be had and say, hey, you don't want to be slapped around. You can't be slapping around either. Like, it's got to be ended on both sides. This is not healthy behavior, not for them and not for you. And how do you do that within a class that allows them to understand that themselves? So it was that moment where we realized that we really need to be educating people who sit on that fence of Western culture and can understand what it is to do an empowerment self-defense teacher training in the way that we've created it and built it, but have the knowledge to make it culturally appropriate once they go home back into their communities. And whether that's the LGBT plus community in Armenia, which is going to be different than the LGBT community in New York. It's going to be different from the LGBT community in Albania. And so training people from those communities who can make that translation of culture into the other communities is super important. I don't know if I could teach survivors of trafficking. It's not a community I've ever dealt with. I don't feel like I have any knowledge in that. Gentiana has so much knowledge and sensitivity for being in that world. So that's a great place. Would it be better if we had survivors who were teaching those classes? Yeah, that could be amazing. And should that be our goal? Yes, absolutely. And I believe that's what ESD Global is trying to do. And I love that you ladies all, I'm not allowed to say ladies, sorry. I hear Wendy yelling at me. You wonderful women have, say it out, Empowerment Self-Defense Global, but the company is really ESD Global. And the reason that I try to say ESD over and over, ESD, because today, if I ask most people, if I ask them, what does CPR mean? They go, oh, I don't know. we want ESD to become as well known as CPR, so you don't have to spell it out. You don't have to say cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Huh! You can just say ESD. So ESD Global, ESD, we're working on it. We're getting there. It's important.
Absolutely. Liz, did you want to comment?
Sure. So I know for me, part of it, a huge part of it is that until I'm Latin. I've been sitting on my hands, which probably because it's really very cold in this apartment. But anyway, part of it for me, and particularly talking to not just people of color and different ethnicities here in the U.S., but also because I'm bicultural and grew up in two completely different countries and saw lots of different things and have friends all over the planet. And I know that clear, just by virtue of the 5 women on this particular call, we all do, right? Our experiences are all very different. So I can't speak as a Venezuelan woman. I can't speak for the experience that Venezuelan women are currently having in my country because I'm not there. If I went in right now to try and teach them self-defense, it would ring hollow because I don't know how to answer their questions or their problems because I haven't been there to experience them. So like Judith said earlier, you have to listen. You have to listen and be open to the fact that you may not be the right person to go into that community and teach. And I don't think we see that sort of self-reflection enough in any realm, but especially martial arts and in many self-defense, not saying about the empowerment self-defense groups, because we literally that is one of the things that we're all about is listening, but many self-defense instructors and so on and so forth, coming in and explaining or making assumptions about an experience. I have actually an anecdote that really, really highlighted that for me in a way that I would never be able to have done before that experience. At camp in 2018, when we had that thunderstorm and that loud crack of thunder came through, and all of the US based people were like, oh my God, did you see that? Where'd the lightning hit? And we turned around and all of the Israelis instructors had hit the floor and were crying and taking cover because it sounded like a bomb. And the rest of everyone else was like, well, why the, whatever are they on the ground? Said, because it sounded like a bomb, y'all. And that's a real experience. So how could someone that's never experienced constant air raids go into a community to tell them about self-defense and say and blow right past that, right? So it is absolutely key that we recognize that sometimes we are not the person to go in to teach, that we need to find someone that can, and that too that we are open to the fact that we may just not have the framework to address that particular culture because we don't have the shared experience or anything analogous.
Well, thank you for all of you sharing. I know that we're going over time, so if you do have to go, I completely understand. I'm so grateful for all of you and all of your voices. I wanted to just ask the question. So it says, why does everybody need self-defense? If we maybe had 1 or 2 of you wanted to answer, that would be great. And then we'll go on from there.
Can you repeat the question again?
Why does everybody need self-defense?
Okay, I don't know if that answers answer exactly to the question, but connected to the previous question, I want to say that as one of the instructors, the newly certified instructors in Albania, she works for an NGO, and we were lucky to have 14 organizations participate with their staff member and have that person trained as instructor for Empowerment Self-Defense. And as she was saying, from her point of view, she was saying, we have had years and years investing in the word, meaning through awareness raising, through the legal assistance, through the psychological assistance that all the organizations and other institutions do when it comes to prevent situations of violence or abuse, or to assist the people that have gone through such situations. And on the other hand, we have the world of martial artists and other similar disciplines for self-defense. So I think it's so beautiful to see how ESD is the meeting point of these two worlds that have the same objective, which is self-defense and protection of human rights, protection of you, of us as a person, as a human being, that we have the right to speak, we have the right to stand up for ourselves, and not to be always like the victim. Also consider that I need protection from the state, I need protection from the law, I need protection from my husband or my brother or my son, when I also can defend myself and I also can protect myself. So is this ESD is like a meeting point of all this. So that is why I think and I believe that ESD should be one of the basic skills that every single child should receive in their school, as part of their education, the same way they learn math, the same way they will learn swimming, the same way they learn how to have interaction with other people. It's the basic. It's for their whole life.
And that's why everybody needs to learn this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in closing, for a message to your younger self, what is one piece of advice pertaining to empowerment you wish you knew? Oh,
you're muted, Liz.
Liz, you are muted.
Sorry about that. I was going to say, don't wait so long. Whether it's martial arts, self-defense, whatever your passion is, don't wait so long. The moment you discover it, go check it out. And then go take an empowerment self-defense class.
I would add, don't wait for the day to realize you needed self-defense classes. Like, do it before. And we all hope that we never need it. But when you learn ESD, you actually learn that there are areas of ESD teachings that you can use in your everyday situation, not the worst case scenario that most people think of. It's for everyday situations that is empowering, that is uplifting, that reinforces your self-belief, self-worth. And don't we want all that and all this craziness in the world? And don't we want to be a role model for our daughters and for our loved ones and our families and communities? We need more empowerment in ourselves. Yeah.
What I'd like to say to myself is, first of all, freedom is not dangerous. Freedom is beautiful. So ESD helps you have freedom to choose.
And I would just add to my younger self, you have the right to rewrite the words of the songs you sing in your head. And we all sing songs in our head. You know, I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. I can't do this. It's not perfect. And I have the right to rewrite those songs. I can rewrite the lyrics of those songs and create my own playlist of what I want singing in my head. And I think that's like, I love my hips. Woo! I just want to add, I have a friend who every now and then sends me the exact same line. she'll send me an article of somebody who had a problem or something that happened or whatever. And then she writes the same thing every single time. ESD, the gift you give before she needs it.
Mm.
It's a gift you can give to yourself too.
Absolutely.
And with that, I really do have to go, and I love you all. My job's done. I am so done. Like, I can fall off the face of the earth. You guys all got this. You don't need me. I am so excited. My job is to make sure that I'm irrelevant by the end of March. That's it. I'm giving away all the jobs, and I am falling off the face of the earth at the end of March. And I will resurface when I resurface. But love you all, and this was so amazing and wonderful. And yes.
Ladies, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking this time.
We love you guys.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.